I want to say a quick word about job descriptions. Most of the job descriptions we see are usually only used for hiring purposes. Once the position is hired, the job description gets filed away, just like the org chart, until a new employee needs to be hired for that position. And then, a new person needs to get hired, so everybody rushes around trying to find that old job description. They determine whether or not it's accurate. They make the changes if necessary, and the process continues. What you're seeing here is the typical job description. In fact, this is what one of our clients was using as a job description before becoming a client of ours. This was an endodontic practice in California. And as you can see, well, it's sort of a description of the job, but it's really just an ad. It's what people use to hire people. It's not really what we call a job description. What if a job description was a position-specific operating manual, a list of all of the processes and expectations someone hired for that position was expected to follow? Something used not only to hire someone, but also used to train them, manage them, and evaluate them. And because it's used to evaluate the employee, both the employee filling the position and the manager of that employee tend to keep their eyes on it so it stays current. So when these tools are actually used in the week-to-week, month-to-month management of the company, they stay current organically. It's easy to keep your processes current. Okay, back to the plan. In step 4, you're going to start implementing your processes. And you do this as soon as you've written 1 or 2 processes. I'm not going to go into how to write a process today because it's easy. You just write down what you do step by step. Do this, do that, do this, do this. But what you don't want to do is try to wait until all of your processes are written before you start introducing this idea of following processes to your staff. Jump right into it. Write 1 process and start training someone. So implementation is all about creating a clear and accurate picture of what an employee in that position needs to be doing. What do I need to teach them? What do I need them to follow? What do I need to follow up with them about? How do I manage their results? All of it is depicted in their job description. And what is good about a touchstone job description is that it makes it very tangible. Management can be a very difficult thing when you're trying to manage people who have not had much training, when they are essentially making it up as they go along or they're learning by watching. So if I'm looking at this job description, this is a very tangible set of activities that I want my property manager to do. It's not fair to criticize your employee when the manager has not been able to hold them accountable to a process. If the manager's not been able to show them how to succeed in a tangible way, it's just not fair. You can't just say, I told you to do that. So the job description fills this purpose in management. And really, there are 2 types of training. There's new employee training, and then there's ongoing training. And the job description is key for both of these management processes. Let's talk about training. Let's say that, remember, I've set myself up as the property manager, and let's say I get a new maintenance technician. David Smith is my new maintenance technician. If we go back to the org chart here, you'll notice that the maintenance tech reports to me. So when I put someone in as that position, maintenance tech, it shows up in my section under property manager called management review. For new employee training, the job description for David Smith is right here. The job description for the maintenance tech, because David Smith fills that, is right here. I can simply click on it and everything that he needs is right here. These check marks, by the way, tell me that I have already trained him in this process. I'm going to walk through process by process how to do what I need him to do. So I'm going to click on the process called keys and entry, and I'm going to say, David, this is what you do with vacant properties. Use the lockbox, then do this, then do this. And then I'm going to say, does that all make sense to you, David? And David says yes, and I'm going to say, great, I trained him. And I'm going to say, hit save, which is going to timestamp that I trained him on this. And then I'm going to go back to the next occupied properties. And I'm going to say, okay, so when a property is occupied, you do this, you do this. Does that all make sense to you? If David has a question, I answer the question here, but eventually he's going to say, got it. And I'm going to say, brilliant, you're trained, bingo. And now you'll see when I go back to the keys and entry, both of these are trained. If you have a lot of processes, you can just click train all here as well. But now you'll notice that as we're starting to go through these, we're checking off that we've trained him in the processes. And you walk through one process at a time. You train them on how to do that work. And it sounds really simple, right? And I can tell you that it is so beautiful when it works this way. Now, that said, there are always going to be instances when a process maybe hasn't been written yet, or, you know, I just did that yesterday, I'm not going to bother doing it again, so it's not really a process, or things like that. If you find your mind is going there, let go of those variables and focus on what is consistent. The majority of what all employees do, whether you believe it or not, is rudimentary and consistent. Some of it is more complicated than others based on the work they do, but the majority of it is consistent. As a manager, I'm going to look at the job description for that new employee who is coming into that position, and I'm going to start considering how long does it take me to train in each of these processes. So how long did it just take me to walk through that keys and entry process? That wasn't very long. Some processes might take 5 or 10 minutes. Other processes might take several hours. And I'm going to actually start adding up that training time and multiplying it by what I pay someone in that position and add in my management time. Now I got a pretty good sense of what it's going to cost me to hire a new employee and get them up to speed as quickly as possible, which is a really important thing to know. So if I go back to the organizational chart, and you're considering who you're going to hire next, and you're growing your company, you need to know this information. If you can tell me exactly how long it's going to take to hire this new employee and how much it's going to cost me, well, you've just unlocked the puzzle between sales and operations. So this is often that chicken or the egg issue, because if you've got a lot of new sales and you don't have the operational staff to be able to handle it, you're going to get a lot of upset clients. If you've got a lot of operational staff but not enough sales to keep them busy, well, you're not going to be very profitable. And the job description becomes key to this. Additionally, with new employee training, if I've hired someone and I made a mistake, I can spot it much sooner. If I know how long it's taking me, if I hired someone and it took me, say, 40 hours to train them, and now I have a person that I'm currently training and they're not just getting it after like 30 hours, I want to cut my losses with this new employee early. I'm going to save a lot of money. There are some astonishing statistics out there by consultants who have studied this situation, and it is incredibly costly to hire the wrong employee. There's a guy called Brad Smart. He wrote a book called Top Grading. He says 75% of the time companies are failing at their hiring process. That means 3 out of 4 new employees is a mishire. I can save the company a lot of money, and honestly, I can save the new employee a lot of frustration and a lot of time by letting them go instead of just hanging on and hoping they're going to succeed. They're simply not going to be able to succeed at this, so let them go. So the job description can help us gauge whether or not we've got the right person for the position. It makes it very, very tangible. Let's talk about ongoing training very briefly. If I have a problem with an employee, I can always refer back to the job description. If I have someone in a position and they're not achieving the expectations I have for them, or they're not doing as well as other employees in the same position, we can go back to the job description. We can look at the process that they're failing at, and we can discuss, how are you using it? We can discuss, are you actually following it? We can have a conversation about the process. Is the process not working? Is it simply not working for them? So you can now begin to hear the tone of my voice. It's not about what's wrong with you. I told you 5 times to do it this way. You never listened to me. You're insubordinate. Well, why are you so stupid? It's not that at all. A job description takes the energy out of the equation. It's no longer personal. It's a conversation about the process. It takes all of the emotion, all of the angst out of managing. In fact, it actually gives you a management process. It makes managing easy. You simply have to hold employees accountable to the processes that they agree to follow. It's no longer about blaming. The tone of management changes completely. The job description also helps with communication. It's a huge time saver. If the employee is asking me a lot of questions, I just refer them back to their job description. If they're clocking in their hours incorrectly, if they're doing something incorrectly, I refer them back to the process. I can ask them to reread the process and let me know where they're going wrong with it. I don't have to retrain them. They know exactly where to find it. They just log in and they select their position, and everything they need is right here. They don't have to hunt for it. There's no excuse any longer. If they need access to information, you can tell them, go look in Touchstone. The documents are all there. If they have a question, chances are it's in the process, and I know it's there because I wrote the process. You direct them back to where the content is stored, and they don't have to go hunting for it. All of the content they need is linked to their position. The minute a manager changes their tone and makes the employee accountable to what they're responsible for, and it's done in a very tangible way, on the job description, for example, the employee begins to learn something new, and it redirects the whole business in a different direction. It takes time to get there, and it takes time for the employee to get used to it, but it's completely worth it in the end.